10 years after the Star Wars prequels, Star Wars is back again, and, in usual Star Wars fashion, the conditions of this new trilogy are different. But fans are pumped. So far we have episodes 7 and 8, and an anthology film set between episodes 3 and 4. Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens, has been generally loved by fans, and at the same time, it's been widely accepted that Episode 7 copies large portions of Episode 4, creating a nostalgia fest of a film. Rogue One has been enjoyed by many fans, some even claiming it's one of the best Star Wars films ever made. And then we got to Episode 8, The Last Jedi, the first new Star Wars film that seems to have really split the opinion of fans. There's something missing in the new Star Wars films. They are filled with nostalgia, looking back at the things we loved, but they can't seem to find their own identity. They are only carried by what came before. The Force Awakens and Rogue One took very little risks and doubled down on nostalgia and the glory of the original trilogy. When you watch Episode 4, you see all of these amazing ideas. Darth Vader, the Jedi, TIE Fighters, X-Wings, the Death Star, droids, Wookiees. When you see Episode 5, you see the AT-ATs, Snowspeeders, the Emperor, Cloud City, Boba Fett, Yoda. In Episode 6, we see Jabba the Hutt, Sarlacc, Scout Troopers. Even in the prequels, we see the Jedi Temple, pod racing, Darth Maul, the Jedi Council, battle droids, clones, Geonosis, Count Dooku, and General Grievous. What about in the newest films? Can you name anything in Episode 7, Rogue One, or Episode 8 that isn't just derivative of something in the old films? BB-8 is knockoff R2, Snoke is knockoff Emperor, Kylo Ren is whiny Vader, Starkiller Base is a knockoff Death Star, Jakku is knockoff Tatooine, Crate is knockoff Hoth. I mean, there are even legitimately knockoff scenes in these films.
You take this. It's safer with you than it is with me. You get as far away from here as you can.
Where has the creativity and genius of Star Wars gone? What the new films are missing is George Lucas. Lucas is the original creator of Star Wars. The ideas and the feel of the films come from him. Don't run for the comments yet, stay with me. Don't look at plot for a moment. Look at characters, worlds, and ideas. Star Wars cannot survive without George Lucas. I'm not talking about surviving financially. I'm talking about films having the innovation and wonder that Star Wars initially brought. These films are not being created by the same mind that created the originals. Because of this, they will always feel different. When you have multiple directors working on these films without a consistent, singular creative voice, problems occur. What if J.K. Rowling let someone else write a Harry Potter book? Sure, it would use the same characters and maybe have the same general tone, but something would feel off. It's the same for these new Star Wars films. They don't feel like Star Wars. The Force Awakens is a new hope, but worse and drenched in nostalgia. Rogue One was okay, but it didn't have to do any world building because everything was already in place. The Last Jedi was different. Instead of trying to rehash previous episodes, it tried to go so far in the opposite direction that it ended up not making any sense. And the funny thing was, it ended up taking aspects from Episode 5 and did them worse, such as training the new Jedi on a faraway planet, or fighting AT-ATs on a white planet to protect a rebel base. Now I can already hear your rebuttal to this. But Tyler, Lucas made the prequels, and the prequels are terrible. Yes, George Lucas created the prequels, and they have problems. When George Lucas was creating his first two films, THX 1138 and American Graffiti, he was constantly fighting the studios. Lucas's first two films left in him a resentment towards studios. He hated the idea that someone else could tell him how to make a movie, even if it was helpful criticism.
It's a fact of kind of resentment, I guess, that everyone feels when one finds that somebody who has the money, or as a result of the money, has the power, they can make like aesthetic, directorial, writing decisions, which they have really no business making.
The original trilogy worked because George Lucas was collaborating with writers and directors to make these films. His great ideas were channeled and his bad ideas were given opposition. This is good for any artist. The problem with the prequels was that Lucas was given too much control. Without people around him to channel his ideas, he floundered.
The only reason it's fun is because I don't have to answer to anybody. I don't have anybody telling me what to do. That's what I've earned
The prequels were poorly written and executed films. Yes, we can all agree on that. However, if you take the general story of Anakin Skywalker and his journey to becoming Darth Vader, you have something that could have easily been compelling if the same restraints that were given for the original trilogy were placed onto the prequels. George Lucas is necessary to continue building the world and the story of Star Wars, but great artists need restraint. But the lead creator needs to be able to maintain creative voice and control over the projects to create individual works that come together cohesively. The prequels failed in the execution of a screenplay and a film. They did not fail in expanding the world and the general story of Star Wars. The prequels lacked constructive criticism. What the new films lack is the essence of Star Wars.
Got a family? Got a boyfriend? Cute boyfriend?
Many different directors, each with their own scripts without someone who is directly involved in each film creatively, causes problems. Look at all of the unsolved questions Episode 7 brought up that Episode 8 either waved away or didn't solve at all. There are too many visions about what Star Wars is and where it should go. Mark Hamill and Rian Johnson fundamentally disagreed with Luke's character, and possibly the meaning of the Jedi as a whole.
I said to Ryan, I'm so surprised how you see Luke. When I read 8, I told Ryan, I fundamentally disagree with virtually everything you've decided about my character.
Mark Hamill was also upset that Luke and Han never had a reunion in Episode 7.
Are you bummed that Luke didn't get sort of a reunion with Han Solo?
Absolutely. In fact, when I was reading it, I thought, if Leia's trying to mentally contact me and she's not successful, she'll rush to his aid. She'll get close to him and then get into some dire situation, and that's when I show up for a big yay, save her life. Then we rush to Han and are in the same position that Rey and Finn and Chewie are. Too late to save him, but witnesses. And I say, because it would carry so much emotional resonance into the next film. For us, his wife, his best friend to witness, instead of two characters that've known him, 20 minutes?
David Fincher was approached to direct Episodes 7 and 9. He declined, but he did give some interesting thoughts on his view of the Star Wars saga. Fincher said, "I always thought of Star Wars as the story of two slaves, C-3PO and R2-D2, who go from owner to owner witnessing their master's folly, the ultimate folly of man. I thought it was an interesting idea in the first two, but it's kind of gone by Return of the Jedi. Is this how Star Wars is intended to be perceived? That's not the point. What can be said is that David Fincher did not create Star Wars, but is interpreting how he sees the films through his ideas of what the films are trying to say. J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson also have their own ideas of what Star Wars is trying to say. Interpretations of art are valid, but they also aren't what the creator was thinking as he or she made the art. These new films are not Star Wars films. They are fan fiction films. They are members of the audience interpreting what Star Wars could or should be by their definition.
Be careful not to choke on your aspirations, director.
Star Wars has become just like Marvel, DC, Jurassic Park, and X-Men. Just blockbusters with different directors that might produce the occasional good film, but most will be mediocre or bad. I think it all comes back to the fans of Star Wars. Fans are in the mindset that Star Wars is great just because of the name. Just because it says Star Wars, that makes it the most amazing thing ever.
Well, you talked about the original trilogy, and it's like people responded to those movies with such fandom and excitement because they liked the movies, and now that's inverted. Now they're responding to
more about the brand.
The brand, and before the movie comes out, this weird flock mentality, sheep mentality of people that are just like blind fans to this. It's almost like a cult now.
The reaction of fans has allowed these films to be mediocre at best, which does nothing but continue this cycle of churning out these bad fan fiction films.
It makes you even look back on the original trilogy and even the prequel trilogy to a certain extent and appreciate like the realness of it. Now it feels like there's a gloss over everything.
But, sadly, and I'm really pointing at myself here, Mark Hamill said it best regarding these new films.
Let's all repeat the mantra, it's only a movie. And if you think you're going to go into the movie and recapture your childhood, you're setting yourself up for disappointment.